Please. Jefferson County Court at Law number 2 is back in session. The court is in session in cause number M327-596. The case is South State of Texas versus Patrick Daniel Gallagher. Let the record reflect that Mr. Gallagher is present in court with his attorney Dustin Galmore. Let the record also reflect that the state is present with Assistant District Attorney Erica Porter and Attorney Colby Hoffmeyer. Let the record reflect that the jury is also present in the court. State, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Defense, are you ready?
Yes, we're ready.
Okay. Mr. Hoffmeyer, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. That's what remind the court that the state had offered and was admitted, Stacey exhibit number 3, and we were about to publish.
Okay, you can
And do that.
publish stage 3.
Thank you. But really quickly, officer. You testified before our break that you asked for consent from Mr. Gallagher and he would not give consent for a blood draw. So therefore you had started the process of applying application to get a blood mark to get blood from Mr. Gallagher. Is that right?
Yes, sir, correct.
Now, this is another video where you're walking back in. Did you do that between the two videos, Stacey Exhibit 1 and Stacey Exhibit 3? You were at that during those times where you go through the process of an application for a blood warrant?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. Now, why did you go get some stuff and stop doing that?
I stopped to go get the DIC statutory warning
Okay.
so that I could reread it to Mr. Gallagher.
And that's after, I believe, in your testimony was that you were informed by the jail staff, Mr. Gallagher, and now agreed he would consent to blood draw.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct? Okay, so you were going to do that again.
Yes, sir.
Do the same thing you had done previously with Mr. Gallagher out on the street in Needlewood, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna. Mr. Gallagher, I'm understanding that you are wanting to give a blood draw now.
Will be on the. Will be on the.
Okay, so I'm gonna reread it to you and provide you with a copy to be able to read along with me, so that way you can say that it was provided to you prior to giving consent. You're under arrest for an offense arising out of acts alleged to have been committed while you're operating a motor vehicle in a public place or a watercraft while intoxicated, or an offense under section 106.041 Alcoholic Beverage Code, you will be asked to give a specimen of your breath and or blood. Specimen will be analyzed to determine the alcohol concentrations or presence of controlled substance.
I
drug,
get to that, I want to take blood, I'm sorry. Nobody's taking a needle, it's not happening, I don't do needles.
The issue that
To ask for, to take blood again.
the issue, Mr. Gallagher, is we can't take breath right now because of the COVID-19. The breath machine shut down. We can only take blood. Okay. Good morning. Here we go. You got nothing to do with it.
All right, now, did Mr. Gallagher, on the video, did he allow you to finish reading the DIC 24, which you're required to do?
No, sir.
He wouldn't let you finish?
No, sir.
Okay, so he went from where he wasn't gonna get consent, now he agreed to consent, and then did he give a reason why he didn't want?
He's afraid of needles, sir.
Okay. Do you see tattoos on Mr. Gallagher in this video?
Yes, sir.
Okay, did he have tattoos on both arms?
I can't recall if he had
Okay,
them on both arms.
but he said that he's scared of needles and he didn't want to give it, that was the reason, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So at that point, what did you do?
I went ahead and proceeded with getting the blood draw warrant.
So you had to go one back again, go back to doing what you had been previously doing was a warrant,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Okay. You turn the lights on, Bill. Or you can turn the lights on. Now, I want to be clear, at this time, do you know exactly what time you were at the jail?
No, sir.
Okay, now, you testified that it was approximately around 10 p.m. on May 7th, 2020, when you initiated the traffic stop on Mr. Gallagher.
Yeah,
Right? Okay, now, about just ballpark it for me, how long at this point had you had Mr. Gallagher in custody and you had to go do the blood work? How long, how much time had passed?
I would estimate at least an hour and a half.
Okay. Now. Can I approach you?
Yes, you may.
Now, Sonia was previously marked as state exhibit number 4. Taking a look at that. Did you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
That USB containing video of my body worn camera during the blood draw itself.
Okay, so and did that follow chronologically what we have here? Like this would have been on your body camera as well,
Yes, sir.
right from the end of state exhibit number 3.
Yes, sir.
It follows through with that. Okay, and if you reviewed that
Yes, sir.
somehow, okay, and does it fairly and accurately represent what you testified here today is your investigation of Mr. Gallagher,
Yes, sir.
but driving while intoxicated,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And you were the operator of the body cam,
Yes, sir.
and you know how to operate it and it with an accurate representation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and has it been tampered with in any way?
No, sir.
This time, Judge State, tender opposing counsel states that it was 4. Okay. Barring the objection, it has to be admitted.
No objections. State's exhibit number 4 is admitted.
Now, officer, how long did it take you to get the blood warrant in order to take the blood draw for a search warrant, a valid search warrant? How long did it take you to process all that, where you actually could bring Mr. Gallagher to a nurse to draw the blood?
I don't remember exactly how long it took. Usually the process is around 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, so it wasn't an unusual long wait or anything that night?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Bubster.
You may publish it.
Yeah. Gallagher, I do have a warrant here authorizing the jail to take a specimen of your blood, and that's all that needs to be there. I want to do it, but right now, given the circumstances with COVID-19, unfortunately, blood's the only route we have to go. Yes, sir, I do. And we'll get to that here in a minute, but. We can't operate the breathalyzer right now because of the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah. Yes, sir. Here's the one thing. Okay, yes, sir.
No, mercy. Wait, so I'm gonna go do something.
Okay, the second she got her. We're gonna go down and through this door. So exit.
It don't pop. It don't pop the door.
Very good. Yeah, first go on your right. If we had a level out, then obviously the route we'll be talking about. Here, let's speak carefully.
Thank you.
Like I said, we have breathalyzer, that's obviously the route we.
Got a long tattoo.
It's different. Can you liberty seal?
Never have people doing that, Jordan.
Officer, what are you doing at this time while you're waiting for the nurse to draw the blood?
Pulling the tubes that come inside the box, once you break the seal, there's two glass vials inside of that seal, which contain a coagulant for the blood to go into. And I'm preparing them for the nurse to be able to use them during the blood draw.
Did you provide the kit, blood draw kit to the nurse to get in the samples, or is it there at the jail that they use? Or do you bring it in?
I brought it in.
Okay, is that standard procedure for PD?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
All right, well, look at-
What's your name, please? Jackson.
Georgia,
G. Jackson.
yeah, RN.
They'll be in, I mean. And can I get you to fill this out for me, please? Patrick Gallagher. Here's his details. Cody Perkins.
Now, officer. That was, did that encompass all of the blood draw for Mr. Gallagher on May 7th? Almost into May 2020,
Yes,
is
sir.
that correct? Now, on that, the video, we can see you working with a kit with two tubes and all that, and it looks like you're filling out labels, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And may I approach you on?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna show you what previously marked as state exhibit number 6. We take a look at that.
Sir.
Sir. You tell me what that is?
This is the blood draw kit that I used the night of Mr. Gallagher's arrest.
Okay, how do you know that it's the same exact kit that we saw in the video that has Mr. Gallagher's blood draw in it?
It's got the case number that I wrote in my handwriting as well as my initials and the date.
Okay, now you do that because you're trained to do that, so that blood samples aren't mixed up and given to the wrong case to the wrong person. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, now when you said it, the integrity seal, is that on that particular kit?
Yes, sir.
You
it is.
said, all right, and so it's on there. Would you show us what that is? What are we looking at?
The integrity seal is this red seal here that goes across where the box shuts, so that if somebody opens it, you can tell that that seal has been broken.
And that's done to make sure the integrity of the evidence to be tested scientifically later on, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and when you do that, you take possession of it, or do you leave it at the jail?
I take possession.
Okay, do you keep it at Needle and PD?
Yes, sir.
Okay, until it needs to be analyzed, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, who collected the sample from the defendant? 2 samples from Mr. Gallagher? Who was that?
Is Mrs. Georgia Jackson.
Okay, was she on the video?
Yes, sir.
She was the LVN, I believe, drawing the blood, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, did you provide the tubes to her?
Yes,
from the
sir.
kid, okay? And I believe both of y'all turned, looks like you turned them up and down. What was the reason for that?
Yes. Inside of each of the tubes, there's a white coagulant to help preserve the blood. And once the blood draw is completed, you're supposed to turn it at a minimum of 7 times upside down. So that way that coagulant can mix with the blood.
Now, and you handed 2 tubes from a new kid at that time to Miss Jackson. She provided the blood from, because she's a medical professional, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then did she hand those back to you as we saw on the video?
Yes, sir, she did.
Okay, what do you do at that point?
At that point, there's actually a new integrity seal that I put my initials on that I put over the top of the actual blood tube itself.
Now. My question,
Yes, you may.
do that, state's exhibit number 6, at this time, can we get some blood from the court, Your Honor, because biologic?
Mr. Porter.
Biologic, yeah.
Yes.
We had.
Yeah, I had
some
used it.
boxes too. I apologize, I would brought some down, I thought we had some in there. Thank you, sir. You mind that, one more pair for, thank you. Thank you for. Pepper Joe.
Yes, yes, you may.
Right, I'm gonna take, this is sealed now, correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open it so we can look at the contents therein of state's exhibit number 6.
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm gonna show what we're gonna mark here. What do you see in station number 6?
I see 2 blood tubes inside their travel containers.
Okay, do you recognize those?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. We'll take one of these out. They're contained in state's exhibit number 6. Both of them, I'm gonna mark them this time. The state's exhibit number 6A and state's exhibit number 6B.
Six.
And now what we're talking about are the 2 tubes in state exhibit 6. We're marking them as state's exhibit 6A, no, 6A and 6B. And the contents therein of 6A, 6B. Now we can take a look at those.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now, are they encased in a protective wear so that, that they can't be contaminated as well? Besides the box in state exhibit 6.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Now, in order for you to recognize it or see the labels which you have, you also have your name. You said you have identify marks on this particular thing. We're gonna open it up to review the actual tubes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll do it this time, all right. Stations exhibit 6A. Open up stations exhibit 6A for us.
Yes, sir.
Right. And that is another actual vial which contains the blood sample of Mr. Gallagher taken on May 7th, 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And how do you recognize it? Does it have your labels on
Yes, sir, it's got my signature right there.
it? And it has, so Mr. Perkins, it has Officer Perkins,
Yes, sir.
and then it also has Mr. Gallagher's name.
Yes, sir, it does.
Doesn't it also include the date?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now is the integrity of that tube messed up in any way other than what you send it there and for the sample to be tested?
This one's been open, sir.
Okay, it's been open, okay, it's been, so it has been placed, been open, but that's the only way we can get in there to test the actual evidence.
Yes, sir.
Right. So, well, I'm not gonna place any other markings on it, but I would ask that this is specifically one of the tubes you handed to Miss Jackson on May 7th, 2020, and it contains the blood sample of Mr. Gallagher. Okay, is that right?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And it was around 11:58 when the blood draw was given.
Yes, sir.
And you say that on the video, and that's in your paperwork.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. All right, let's place this back there. Well, to make it clear, this states 6A and the contents therein, which includes the tube with all the names that say your name, also Mr. Gallagher's name, and the time at which the sample was taken.
Yes,
Right. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing with State's Exhibit 6B. I'm gonna hand that to you and let you open it up. And explain what you find there.
Another blood tube similar to the first one that I removed, except for the seal on it has not been broken.
Do you know why we take two test tubes of blood sample?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why is it?
One tube is tested for the presence of alcohol for BAC purposes. If it is not detected or if the results are below a 0.08, another tube will be sent to the lab in Austin, Texas, to be tested for the presence of any kind of narcotic or other substance that may affect the person's ability to use their mental and physical faculties.
Now, let's be clear, in State's Exhibit 6B, the contents therein include test tube that it contains your markings on it as the officer. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is correct.
Also, the date in which the sample was taken.
Yes, sir.
Also, the defendant in this particular case, Mr. Gallagher.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you sealed it and placed that in this when you took it from the nurse. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir, I did.
And you did notice that that seal hadn't been broken and it wasn't tested, but we take two samples anyway. Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
We can put that back in there for you. Right now. Where did you take, say, Exhibit 6, which includes Exhibit 6A and 6B, once you were given that by Mr. Jackson at the Jefferson County Jail?
I returned back to the Nero Police Department.
Now, would you put it? Place it on a table or?
Yes, sir. On the right back at the police department, right inside our back door to the right, we have a supply room. Inside that supply room, we have a refrigerator, mini refrigerator that has a padlock on it. I placed the blood kit inside the refrigerator. I then locked the padlock on it. And then I took the actual key to the padlock and then logged the key into evidence so that nobody else could use that key to open the padlock back again.
Okay. Now, at that point, either you or someone in your department will transport that to the lab. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, now, sometimes it's the officer, sometimes it might be the detective. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, as to this particular case and State's Exhibit 6 and 6A and 6B, did you leave it in the locked evidence refrigerator at Needle and PD?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, and what was the reason for leaving it there?
We leave them in the refrigerator where it's locked, so that way it can't be tampered with by anybody else. And then it also helps to preserve the evidence by it being.
Okay, now, you said you placed identifying marks on those tubes, meaning your name, also the date and the defendant's name.
Yes, sir.
Each one, it states exhibit 6A, and 6B. Now, did it appear to you have been tampered with in any way from the condition it was on May 7th, 2020 to the day here in court?
With the exception of the one tube that's been open, no, sir.
Okay, and then, is that normal? For one tube to be open if it's being tested?
Yes, sir, that is normal.
Okay, now, how did this get to court today? I mean, how did State's Exhibit 6 and the 6A and 6B get to court?
Yesterday, prior to court beginning, I logged the kit out of the evidence room and then I transported it here to the court myself.
Okay, now, would you tell the jury how that works? Have you placed it in the evidence cooler, correct?
Yes,
Did you take it to the lab to be tested, or did another officer?
no, sir, I did not. Another officer took it.
Is that standard and normal for officers to take? Or detectives to take one or two, or how many you have to the lab?
Yes,
You know,
sir. In our department, it's normal for one of the detectives to take it to the lab.
Okay, now when it's tested and whatever needs to be done with it, what happens to it there? Does it stay at the lab or does it come back to the lab?
No, sir, we're notified by the lab and typically a detective will go and pick it up and then bring it back to the department and then log it back into evidence.
So there's no way from the time that you've had it and then a detective who brought it to the lab and then ultimately picked it back up. It hasn't been out in the open for someone to tamper with. It's in a locked in Nealon PD, and then while it's at the lab, they have possession. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, and then no one else had possession of it prior to you bringing it to court yesterday on August 3rd, 2023.
No, sir.
Is that correct? Okay. Really quickly, Alderman. I'm gonna ask you again, right? Throughout this investigation, and you testified to a lot on all your body cam, is there anything else that occurred that night through this investigation that is not included on the body cams which we viewed here today? In this,
Not that I can think of at this time.
okay, did you have a in-car dash cam?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, and I approach your own.
Yes, you may.
I'm going to show you what's been previously marked. States Exhibit number 5. We take a look at that. You recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
It is a USB containing my dash camera footage from this investigation.
Okay, now would you explain to the jury what a body cam and a dash cam are two different cameras, obviously, right?
Yes.
Okay, but the dash cam keeps what's going on in front. It also has a camera maybe for the rear.
Yes,
Okay, and the side, some of them's the side. Is that right?
not for us.
Okay, but it's different through each department.
Yes, sir.
Now, out of those videos, okay, is there anything on the dash cam that's not on the body cam?
The-
Meaning, they're on simultaneously?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And everything that is a better, can you say is a better view from a body cam versus the stationary dash cam?
For the personal interaction, I would say that the body camera captures that better. For the actual traffic stop, I would say that the dash cam captured that better than the body camera did.
But we have that, and that is included on states,
Yes.
it went for privilege mark station number 5, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you reviewed that station number 5?
Parts of it, yes,
Okay,
sir.
and is that fair? It was taken on a video camera, which you were competent operator of, you know how to work the video camera in your unit.
Yes, sir, that is true.
Okay, and then did it take a fair and accurate representation of what you did and your interactions with Mr. Gallagher on May 7th, 2020?
We'll stipulate, Judge, and we don't have any objection to the initial.
Okay,
At this time, instead of offer stations at 5,
okay, let me,
for all purposes, Your Honor, if we're not gonna publish, we just have it available for the jury to watch.
okay, let me do this here. Y'all come up to the bench.
Right.
State's exhibit number 5 will be admitted.
Thank you. Now, officer, on May 7th, 2020, who was the individual that you stopped in Needle and city limits for speeding?
Mr. Packer.
And he's the man, Mr. Gallagher is the man sitting here you already identified, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, now, is that in Jefferson County of Texas?
Yes, sir.
City limits and Needle and Texas. Okay, and did you observe and then make a traffic stop on Mr. Gallagher on that date?
Yes, sir, I did.
Was he operating a motor vehicle?
Yes, sir, he was.
Okay, and that was a truck, was a motor vehicle. Was he on a public place, in a public place, excuse me?
Yes, sir, he was.
He was on Needle and Avenue, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, through your investigation, did you determine through your training and experience and also through the clues that you observed and through your investigation, enough for you to make an opinion as to whether Mr. Gallagher had lost the normal use of his mental faculty?
Yes, sir, I did.
And is that meaning that he was intoxicated? Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, so he's intoxicated under our laws in the state of Texas.
Yes, sir.
Now, through your training and experience and through your investigation and all the things that you testified in your video, did you reach a conclusion or opinion as to whether Mr. Gallagher had lost the normal use of his physical faculty by the introduction of alcohol?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, same thing with mental faculties. Was it due to the introduction of alcohol?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, when, and this was in a public place and you determined, but your investigation didn't stop at that point, is that right?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, and you went further and you went to get scientific biological evidence.
Yes, sir.
Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
One last thing I want to ask, okay? When is the last time the defendant said he drank? He admitted to drinking. When did he say he drank his last drink?
It was an hour to an hour and a half earlier, prior to the stop.
Right, but there were open containers in his car. Did he admit that those were drinks that he was drinking?
Yes, sir, he did not.
Who did he say that belonged to?
They were potentially his cousins.
Okay, so an hour and a half before is when he said he stopped drinking.
Yes, sir.
Right, now, that was around 10 o'clock approximately,
Yes, sir. The traffic stop.
traffic stop. Now, the blood draw was around almost 12, almost midnight on the dot,
Yes, sir.
11:58. Okay, so the defendant said he drank, but it wasn't the ones in his car, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, but you still determined through your training and experience that he had lost both the mental faculties and his physical faculties.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And he was intoxicated under our laws due to the introduction of alcohol.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Now, thank you. Pass it.
Okay. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. Just everyone please stand. Okay. Follow the bill. Will be in recess. Will be in recess. Everyone, please stand. Everyone may be seated. Jefferson County Court at law number 2 is back in session. The court is in session and clause number 327596, case of style, state of Texas versus Patrick Daniel Gallagher. Let the record reflect that Mr. Gallagher is present in court with his attorney Dustin Galmore. Let the record also reflect that the state is present with Assistant District Attorney Erica Porter, and Attorney Colby Hoffbauer. Let the record reflect that. The jury is also present in the courtroom. Mr. Galmore, are you ready to proceed? Mr. Galmore, you may proceed. You are.
Good afternoon. I'm a detective. I have a few questions for you, but before we get started, I'd like to just ask you a quick question. Are you here to help one side or the other in order to win? Or are you here as a neutral piece that observed things that night in this particular arrest?
I'm here as a neutral person who observed an offense that evening and acted on it.
Thank you. Let's just start from the very beginning, because if I remember correctly, when you testified, in the beginning of your testimony, I think you were asked a question similar to, did you observe speeding, pull up to Mr. Gallagher and pull him over for the infraction? Or did you follow him for some period of time to observe his driving? You remember that question?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you remember that you answered that you just pulled up to him and pulled him over for the infraction?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you didn't really follow him to observe any type of driving?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, this is a video of camera that's on your dash of your police car. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And
Can that identify the state, what exhibit number that is?
this is state
On the
exhibit,
tag, just to make sure for the record. It's right there on the tag.
state exhibit number 5. Play states exhibit number 5 for you temporarily, but this is a video of your dash cam pulling Mr. Gallagher over, as far as you know, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
you need the lights turned down?
Sure. Now, while we watch this, Mr. Gallagher, Detective Perkins, would you agree with me that there's no audio captured on the dash cam?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're not gonna hear anything.
No, sir.
Would you say that's Mr. Gallagher right there?
Yes, sir. That is his vehicle.
Okay, and so you're pitching up to him, would you agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it take you about maybe 10 seconds catching, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you have let him up, have you?
No, sir.
You're following him right now, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Maintaining the same speed as him?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree that you've been following him now for maybe 20 seconds,
Yes, sir.
25 seconds,
Yes, sir.
30 seconds?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it took you about 30 seconds to actually light him up, would you agree?
Yes, sir.
And so you actually did follow him for a period of time and observe his driving, didn't you?
Yes, sir, and no, sir.
Are you saying that you followed him for a while, but you didn't observe his driving?
When I was following him, I wasn't observing his driving. Whenever we initiate a traffic stop, first thing we do is catch up to the vehicle. At that point, we take the radio. Once we're able to see a plate, we notify dispatch that we're going to make a traffic stop. We give them that plate and then we wait for them to respond, letting us know that they've received our information, and then we let them know the block number that will be stopping them. At the same time as that, I would typically patrol with my body camera positioned in a charger that was mounted inside the car. So I'm also getting that charge, my body camera out and placing it on the mount.
So I want to make sure I understand, you can turn the light back on. I want to make sure I understand, it's your testimony that despite the fact that you followed behind his vehicle for about 30 seconds, that you were busy doing other stuff and you did not observe his driving.
Yes, sir. My purpose in following him through that period was to get everything ready for the traffic stop. I wasn't following him for the purpose of observing his driving.
I understand that, thank you, but my question is not what the purpose was that you followed him for 30 seconds. My question is, did you observe his driving during that period?
While I was in between doing other things, yes, sir.
Okay, so you did observe his driving for a substantial period of time, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, sir.
And you investigated DWIs for many years, wouldn't you agree with that?
At that point, it was roughly 2 years. Sir.
Okay. Were you trained in the 2006 NHTSA manual or 2013 NHTSA manual, or do you remember?
I do not know, sir.
Is it okay if I just pick the most recent one?
Yes, sir.
When you are trained to investigate DWIs, there's a lot of things that they go over with you, so things to look for. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And it's your job as an officer, regardless of whether you're investigating DWI or not, is to observe things,
Yes, sir.
and then record those things in your report, right?
Yes, sir.
And you would do that because if things are important to the investigation, you need to remember that later, right?
Yes, sir.
And so you put important things in a report. And in a DWI, those things that would be important would be things like, does the defendant act sober or intoxicated? Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so when you go to the school to learn how to investigate DWIs, one of the things, well, really where it stops is where it stops. Where it starts is pulling someone over. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you remember that they actually taught you 24 clues of driving to look for that would show a person could be intoxicated?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do you remember all 24 of those?
No, sir, I do not.
Now, let me ask you this. As an example, weaving. That's a sign that you're trying to look for if someone's intoxicated, right?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't see weaving here, right?
No, sir.
But let's just say you did see weaving, all right? Would you have put that in your report?
Yes, sir, I would have.
Of course you would, right? It's a sign that they're intoxicated. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so have you seen the report later?
Yes, sir, I have it with me.
Okay. Do you remember, did you put any driving clues that you were trained to look for in your report that showed Mr. Gallagher could be intoxicated?
No, sir, I didn't.
So 24 clues, you didn't put any of them in your report.
No, sir.
Is that because you were too busy doing other things to look at his driving? Or is it because you didn't observe any of those clues because they didn't happen?
I don't believe I observed any of those clues.
Okay. Now, I'm not gonna go over all of them, but you're trying to look for things like weaving, straddling the line, maybe turning too wide, things like that, right?
Yes.
Maybe stopping problems or varying speeds, going faster and slower, things like that.
Yes, sir.
You remember all those things are things you're supposed to look for?
Yes, sir.
But none of them are present here. Were they?
No, sir.
In fact, would you put them up for speeding?
Yes, sir.
Speeding's not a sign of intoxication according to your training, is it?
I agree, sir.
So really, there were no signs of intoxication when it comes to how Mr. Gallagher was actually operating the motor vehicle. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Now, the next things that you're trained to look for, the very next thing you're trained to look for is signs of intoxication during the stopping sequence. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You remember that? Okay. Do you remember the things that you're supposed to look for when a person pulls their vehicle over to see if there's signs of intoxication?
I remember a few, sir.
Okay, what would those be?
It would be like either a delayed response and noticing that they're being pulled over, or in some cases, they immediately slam on the brakes and try to stop right in front of you. They have difficulty finding a place to pull over, or during the sequence of the traffic stop, that they are driving for a while, they begin weaving or driving as if they're distracted.
Because in reality, whenever you see a police officers pulling you over, multiple things are going to happen to the driver. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
they may get nervous. They may have to do multiple things at one time now, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
I mean, they have to pull the vehicle over, maybe use a blinker, find a safe spot. They've got to multitask.
Yes, sir.
Divided attention. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so in the stopping process, you didn't observe any clues of intoxication, did you?
No, sir.
Did you write that down in your report though?
No, sir, I did not.
I mean, really, if you're gonna be fair to both sides, right? If you see things that show someone's intoxicated, you're gonna write that down.
Yes, sir.
But what about whenever someone does something so perfect, like drives a vehicle and doesn't show any clues of intoxication, you don't put that down in your report?
It wasn't something I thought of at the time, sir.
How would you remember if they were driving perfectly if you don't write that down in your report?
It'd be up to me to review my dash camera footage, sir.
The next thing is personal contact, right?
Yes, sir.
Next thing you're trained to do is you're trained to observe clues that a person's intoxicated based on their interactions with you. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you did testify earlier, and I believe it's also in your report, correct me if I'm wrong, that Mr. Gallagher handed you a debit card.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's a clue. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
Because in fact, you testified when Mr. That's about that incident, is that it's a divided attention request, hand me your driver's license. And if they do hand you their driver's license, well then, I guess you wouldn't write that down in your report, right?
Yes, sir.
But if they were to do something other than that, you would write down in your report that that's a sign they're intoxicated. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
And don't you agree that if you ask someone for their driver's license and they pull out their wallet and then they hand you a credit card and say, here it is, they might actually be intoxicated. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
That would be strange, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir.
Is that exactly what happened in this case though?
No, sir.
You have a wallet on you?
Yes, sir. I do.
You mind pulling it out?
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious. That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
It's-
I've never seen them like that before. Can you open and show me how that works?
You push them up and then,
Okay, wow. So you've got, it looks like maybe 10 cards in there, a variety of different types of cards.
yes, sir.
And I've got my 10 cards kind of all stacked in there, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it really that, unbelievable that a person, when they go to grab their driver's license, might grab the card behind it and hand the person two things? Especially if they're nervous.
In some instances, yes, sir.
Okay, that's what happened here, right? He handed you two cards, correct?
Well, yes, sir, he did hand me 2 cards.
He did. One was his driver's license, you asked for it. And one was an extra card that appears to have been right behind his driver's license, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But you broke that down. That's a sign that he's intoxicated. Right?
Yes, sir.
Now, there's a lot of other things you're supposed to look for. Can you think of anything else that was a clue in your first personal contact?
First personal contact would be that we ask for a driver's license and insurance card, that they only provide one card and then stop, as opposed to providing the driver's license and looking for the additional documents. Another thing would be the fumbling of the fingers, dropping things, inability just to grasp the one item at a time. And then are we just focusing on like the tactile?
Well,
Because there's also how do the eyes look? How do they sound when they speak? What odors do you detect?
so let's go to that. Let's go to, you said, if I remember correctly, and if I say anything wrong, I'm going off memory, so you correct me if I'm mistaken.
Yes, sir.
You testified that Mr. Gallagher's eyes were bloodshot. Right?
Yes, sir.
Let me show you something here. May I approach her?
Yes, you may.
You recognize that person right there?
Yes, sir.
Who is that?
That's Mr. Gallagher.
Okay, does it appear that he's wearing the same exact shirt as the video that we've already watched?
Yes, sir.
It appears that's the same exact situation. That appears to come from the video, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, your body cam video. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and in that picture, you're standing very close to him, and the camera's really got a pretty good look at his face. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and for whatever reason, while you're talking to him, I guess in that scenario, he's looking off to the side for some reason,
Yes, sir.
right? And his eyes happen to be kind of all the way to the corner. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And it's really showing, I mean, it's a pretty good shot of the whites of his eyes. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, at this point, with my flashlight shining on it, it seems to be washing out the colors of the photo.
Okay, but would you agree with it? It shows the whites of his eyes in that picture.
Yes, sir.
And does this picture Terrence represent what he looked like when you were standing there 1 foot away talking to him?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, defense will move to admit dismiss exhibit number 2.
No, you gotta see it, Judge. or-
Yes, I'm sorry. Let me show you.
Okay.
If no objection states, defense exhibit number 2 is admitted.
Thank you. Your Honor, permission to publish.
Yes, you may publish it to the jury.
So we all have our own eyeballs, right?
Yes, sir.
We can all see things for ourselves. Right?
Yes, sir.
Do you have to be an expert to see color?
No, sir.
Okay, so the jury will be able to look at that picture and make their own determinations as far as how red his eyes. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Now, I believe you also testified that he had slurred speech, right?
Yes, sir.
You never met him before, have you?
No, sir.
You don't know how he talks normally, do you?
No, sir.
So your assumption is that his speech was slurred only because you knew he had been drinking, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, we all have ears, right?
Yes, sir.
You don't have to be an expert to hear slurred speech or hear any kind of speech at all, right? You agree?
Yes, sir.
And so if the jury looks at the video again or listens to his voice and they don't hear slurred speech, everyone will all entitled their own opinion. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
I think something else too that was mentioned at some point in this trial, I can't remember if it was you or not, so correct me if I'm wrong, but a statement was made, something to the effect of that Mr. Gallagher may have been acting more friendly because he was intoxicated.
That was not a statement I made, sir.
Okay. We'll deal with that. Well, let me ask you, was Mr. Gallagher acting friendly that night?
Yes, sir. Mr. Gallagher was very nice,
Throughout the process, he was cooperative, right?
with the exception of the blood draw.
Right. And it is as a United States citizen, it is our constitutional right to not consent to a blood draw. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir, it is.
So on that night, he exercised his constitutional rights.
Yes, sir.
In fact, if a person be investigated for a crime, wouldn't you think that's a good idea to exercise your constitutional rights?
Yes, sir.
I mean, if you're charged with a crime, would you want to hire a lawyer?
Yes, sir.
First thing you do, wouldn't you? Right?
Yes, sir.
Do you think, in your opinion, that Mr. Gallagher was being cooperative and friendly because he was intoxicated? Or do you think it's possible he's just a friendly person?
I believe he's a friendly person, sir.
Okay, thanks. Did he ever act belligerent?
No, sir.
Drunk people do that sometimes, would you agree?
Yes, sir.
He admitted to drinking, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, sir.
Now, I believe it was right after the personal contact phase that you observed what appeared to be liquid spilling out, and basically you ended up finding a beer. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
It's actually a beer that matched the type of beer that Mr. Gallagher said you're drinking.
Yes,
Would you
sir.
agree with that? And you put in your report that it was cold
Yes,
because you thought that was important, right?
yes, sir.
Cold beer in a vehicle is important because that means the person might have been drinking it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And that's why you put it in your report.
Yes, sir.
I think there was also a question asked of you where the question was something like, you asked to know about his neurologist, but he really never gave you the information. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
But if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, just right after that dialogue, the video was played, he then answered the question and said, the last time I saw my neurologist was a month ago, and I don't go back for 6 more months.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so he actually did end up giving that information, right?
Yes, sir.
Does the smell of alcohol dictate how much alcohol the person has drank?
In my experiences of dealing with individuals, a person who has only consumed a minimal amount of alcohol will exhibit the odor of that, but a person who's consumed more amounts of it will exhibit a stronger odor of the alcoholic beverage.
But you do know that alcohol has no smell, don't you?
Yes, sir, it's an alcoholic beverage that you smell.
So it's the rest of the drink that you actually smell,
Yes, sir.
not the alcohol, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh. You watched the body cam video.
Yes, sir.
Did you notice that the sound was off from the actual video itself? There was a delay in the sound. Did you notice that?
Yes, sir. I did.
Okay. You didn't do that, obviously, right?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. And it must have been in the transfer of the video.
That's possible, sir.
But you do agree that if a person was, first of all, if a person's watching the video and you as the officer say, hey, do this, and then the person just kind of stands around for a few seconds and then starts to do it, it might seem like he's got a delayed response. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
But in reality, you notice that actually the audio and the video have a delayed response built in. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so if the jury is watching that video later, do you agree that they should pay attention to that in order to avoid the appearance that Mr. Gallagher might have delayed reactions?
Yes, sir.
There's something else that you testified about that was confusing to me. I believe the question was something like you asked him what medication he takes and he didn't give you an answer. You remember that?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember that? Did you notice that whenever you asked him that question, your body cam audio kind of like went silent for a minute? Did you notice that?
And watching it in here, sir?
Yeah, did you notice that?
Yes, sir.
So he was talking, he was saying something, but it's not recorded. You can't hear what he said. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what he said?
He was talking to me about that. He kind of gave me two answers. He said he was taking medication, but he didn't want to take the medication. And then at one point said no pills. And then told me he takes his medication in the mornings.
That's the entire conversation, right?
I believe so.
Okay. But what I'm talking about is when you specifically asked him, what medication do you take? The audio got muffled for about 5 seconds and you can't tell what he's saying. Do you agree with that?
I would need to rewatch it.
Let's watch it. Actually, wait. I'll do a video. I think we're good with this video. Let's go ahead. I don't think we need this video. Is that state's exhibit number 1? While we're pulling that up, if there is a portion of about a few seconds where you can't understand what he says, do you have a specific memory as to what he said during that portion?
I do know that he never gave me a name of a medication.
7 minutes.
The leg's gotta be straight. So, did I say anything about any kind of, like, what do you call it, any issues with it that are still ongoing, or is it just? Okay, so, what, so, when's the last time you saw your neurologist or your doctor for your head?
About to go.
About a month ago?
Okay, so I'll have to go and see him again.
Oh, so, yes, they just take medication.
Again, so, again, so,
Usually, anytime it's something to do with the head or brain, neurologist or something like that for it.
let's see, good, Rob, he's, you know, that, you know, it's, yeah, there, and the folks down there too.
But it's like a pain medication or a seizure, Mr. Patrick? Oh, which type? You take any medications, Mr. Patrick? Oh, which type?
We get, like, right, on the road.
You know, so it said, it's the only reason I take it. I mean, do you remember what he said?
I do remember he didn't give me a name, like a specific medication that he may have been taking at the time.
Okay, I don't think it's a good time, but maybe in a minute when we're watching this video, we can go over that delay again.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's go over the first test. We did the walk and turn test, right?
Yes, sir.
That test isn't really about walking and turning, it's about a lot of things, isn't it?
Yes, sir. It's a divided attention test.
Divided attention test, that's right. Let's see, do you know how many instructions you normally give someone when you're describing how that test is gonna, how they're supposed to do it?
I don't remember the exact number of how many that we give.
I'm gonna go through the instructions that I believe that you give. You tell me if that sounds incorrect, okay? I want you to take a series of 9 steps,
Correct.
heel to toe,
Yes, sir.
along the line,
Yes, sir.
turn around,
Yes, sir.
9 steps back,
Yes, sir.
heel to toe,
Yes, sir.
and then you count out loud, and you say, do it like me. 1, 2, or whatever, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then you tell them. Then in this particular situation, you may have gone back, but the order doesn't matter. Another instruction you'll give is that take a series of steps around your front foot in order to turn around.
Yes, sir.
So let me demonstrate. What you want a person to do is to take a series of small steps means that they keep picking up their outside foot and take a few steps to turn around, right?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, if somebody, was ex-military and they were just a pivot, then you would say that's a clue that they're intoxicated. Right?
For the test, yes, sir.
Well, I mean, you're conducting the test, right? You would put in your report because they about faced that means they may be intoxicated. Right?
That's only one clue. There would have to be the other clues that would need to be met.
But that would be a clue of intoxication.
Yes, sir, it would be.
And if you get 2 clues, then you put in your report that based on your opinion, they are intoxicated.
It would be based on the standards of the test provides us. It wouldn't be based on my opinion, sir.
Okay, well, earlier in your testimony, he asked you if it was your opinion that he was intoxicated, right?
Yes, sir.
You based that on the test that you gave, right?
I based that on the totality of all the circumstances and stuff, sir.
So another instruction you give is to count out loud,
Yes,
right?
sir.
To keep your arms by your side,
Yes, sir.
and once you start, don't stop.
Yes, sir.
And that's 11 instructions. Does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
And if they missed one of those instructions, then that's a clue that they're intoxicated.
Not missing an instruction, but performing the test incorrectly and disclaiming. So we might lead towards it.
So one of the instructions is once you start, don't stop.
Yes, sir.
If they forget that and they do stop, as you say, Mr. Gallagher did, that's a clue of intoxication according to you, right?
Yes, sir.
So the person must remember all 11 instructions, right?
Yes, sir.
And they must not step off the line, right?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree? That's what most people think the purpose of the test is, because an intoxicated person is probably gonna have a hard time, staying on the line. They might wobble and things like that, right?
Yes, sir. I believe most people would think that.
And if they do that, you're also gonna count that as a clue. Would you agree? Right? Let me ask you this. Do you tell the people that if you forget to count out loud, then I'm gonna count that against you?
No, sir, because if they forget to count out loud, that's not a clue.
Well, you told them to count out loud,
Yes, sir.
and if they don't, then we not be following instructions, right?
But that wouldn't be a clue, sir.
So you just wouldn't count that against them.
No, sir.
That's just because you just don't think you should.
No, sir, because we would just document per the NHTSA standards, whether or not they did or did not count.
Well, then why tell them to count out loud if it's not part of the test?
Because that's the way that I was trained to administer the test, and I was following that training.
So you added that.
Sir,
So you added that.
added the counting out loud, sir?
Isn't that what you just said?
But, Judge, Your Honor, it's ask and answer, the way he answered that. I don't know, what he answered was, what he said, council's asking him over and over again the same thing. Repetitive.
I'm asking what you just said.
Okay, objection overruled.
So, just a minute ago, I asked you if counting out loud, if you failed to do that, they would fail to follow your instructions, and you would count that as a clue, and you said you would not. And the reason you said you would not is because that's just something you tell them to do. Right.
It's something we come to do as part of a training and whenever we learn how to administer the test, sir.
Is there any other instructions on there that if they don't do, you won't hold it against them?
Not that I can think of at the moment, sir.
So that's the only one.
You mean only,
The only instruction, count out loud, is the only one that you wouldn't hold against them if they didn't do it. Okay. You give 11 instructions.
yes, sir.
Number 11, once you start, don't stop. If they don't do that, you're gonna count that against them, correct?
Yes, sir.
If they use their arms instead of keeping them on their side, like you told them, you're gonna count that against them.
Yes, sir.
But counting out loud, you're not.
No, sir.
Is there any other instruction you give them that you're not gonna hold against them? That's what I'm asking.
Not that I can think of at the moment.
So that's the only one. Okay. So one of the clues I believe you put was that Mr. Gallagher stopped, right? Stopped in the middle of the test.
Yes, sir.
Did he turn correctly?
Yes, sir, you did.
People mess that one up all the time, don't they?
Yes.
That's probably one of the most common, right? Wouldn't you
Hard
say
to determine which one's most common, but
wouldn't you say about half the people probably don't do the turn correctly? They pivot instead of taking the series of small steps?
it's a high percentage. Yes, sir.
Let me get to the welcome turn. Now, the reason. Well. Okay, so another thing though, it's not even part of your instructions, at least that we went over, is that you tell them to stand with your arms on their side and put the right foot in front of the left, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's called the starting phase.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you leave them there for an undetermined amount of time while you explain to them how to do the test and demonstrate the test.
Yes, sir.
And that could be a minute or two, right?
Yes, sir. Potentially.
And do you think that people normally stand with one foot in front of the other for a minute or two while they listen to someone talk?
No, sir, but that's the way that we're taught and trained to administer the test.
Would you agree that's unusual?
Yes, sir, I agree. It's,
I can't remember, was that one of the clues that he didn't stand there in that position long enough?
I believe whenever I watched it yesterday, I thought I saw him step off.
So a minute in or so, you're talking and then he kind of does that and then he goes back.
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Is that a clue because he didn't listen to you and follow your instructions? Or is that a clue because he was unable to maintain that position?
Well, sir, prior to beginning the test, I did ask him if anything would prevent him from being able to do so, and he said that he couldn't think of anything that would prevent him from being able to finish the test.
Okay. Well, what I'm asking is what's the clue? When the person does that, do you think it's because I'm going to say this, in this situation, because I'm sure it could be different cases. In this situation, do Did you count that as a clue against him because you didn't think he could maintain that position for 2 minutes? Or is it because you don't think he listened to your instructions and ignored them? Or
I believe it was because he couldn't maintain it.
you believe he couldn't maintain it?
Yes, sir.
And one more thing before I push play, do you remember if it was windy that day?
Yes, sir.
It was windy, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
You can see clothing blowing around. You can hear wind blowing into your microphone, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you notice the one time that it appeared Mr. Gallagher may have missed the line a little with his foot and kind of had to do that and incorrect was when it was the windiest? Did you notice that?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay.
notice
Well,
that.
will you pay attention for me this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you have to restart it?
Yes, it did.
To begin,
Not letting you.
Here's the wind, can't you?
yes, sir. You see that line pretty well? Right, so here's what I'm gonna have to do. I need you to take your left leg and place your left leg on that line. Yes, sir. So that way, like, it's like the line's coming out your foot. And then I'm gonna take your right leg, place your right leg in front of it like so. So you can go and do that. Go ahead and take your right leg and, put it touching heel to toe.
On the line.
Yes, sir. So here's what I'm gonna have you do. Whenever I tell you to begin,
Would you agree it's
we're
about
gonna
10
have to take a
minutes?
series of 9 heel to toe steps.
Sir,
along
10 minutes
this
on the
line.
video.
Yes, sir. Turn around and then take 9 heel to toe steps back, and I'm gonna explain to you how to do it. So stay in this position until I instruct you to begin. All right, so what we're gonna do is when I tell you to begin, you're gonna take 9 heel to toe steps, turn around, take 9 heel to toe steps back. You're gonna make sure you count out loud. It's gonna look and it's gonna sound like this. 1, 2, 3, and so on until you get to your 9th step. When you get to your 9th step, what you have you do is take a series of small steps around the front foot. So kind of pivot on that front foot, regain the position, and then you're just gonna 1, 2, 3, back until you reach your 9th step. So it's just 9 steps, pivot on that front foot, and then just 9 steps back. Would there be anything that would prevent you from being able to do that? All right, you understand the instructions? Yes, sir. So what I always tell everybody is, kind of just focus on the line right in front of you. You kind of like keep your by your side. And then when you begin, don't stop until you're finished. That's not going to, you can go whenever you're ready.
It's hard to tell because they're not linked up, but did you hear it get real windy for a second?
yes, sir.
Okay. And he's on his 5th step. Would you agree with that?
I couldn't tell when he was on this step. So,
Did you hear him say 5?
yes, sir.
Do you know what step it was that you claimed he stepped off the line?
No, sir, I don't know.
Last thing I'm gonna have you do is, go ahead and just kind of stand at attention, the hands down by your sides. So what I'm gonna have you do is,
Did you notice that it appears the audio is 4 seconds off of the video? Did you notice that?
No, sir, I did not.
Um,
I didn't notice it was off.
because what happened was, is you hear him say 9, but then he takes like 3 or 4 more steps.
You're on new approach.
Okay, so we've just watched the walk, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you saw clues and that made you determine that he was intoxicated, right?
Not one.
Okay, but based on that test, you testified, I believe, that it's indicative of intoxication per your training.
Yes, sir.
Because that these two clues were present before.
The support was present, sir.
But just to be clear, the fact that a person may actually not wobble or walk straight, that's just a very small piece of it. There's all these other things that you tell them to do, and you're looking to see if they don't listen to you and follow your directions.
It's not necessarily about seeing if they're listening to me to follow their directions. It's more so we're trying to give them information that's going to divide their task and see if they can retain that and then put it into practice.
How many clues did it take on that test for you to make the determination that they may be intoxicated? How many clues did it take?
2 clues would be indicative of the person.
Two. So just make sure we're clear that if the person forgets to count out loud, wait, we decided that you don't count that way. If a person about faces and does not do a serious small step in conjunction with during a 1 minute standing here and move their foot to the side and put it back, all it takes for you to make the determination based on the test, they may be intoxicated. That's two clues.
Those 2 clues are one building block in the totality of the circumstances that would lead us to believe somebody is intoxicated.
I understand that, but you just said it only takes 2 clues, and those are 2 clues, right?
Yes, sir.
So if those 2 clues are the only clues present, then you would make a determination based on that test that it's indicative of intoxication. Right,
Yes, sir.
thank you. Next test, one-legged stand. Do you know how many instructions you give on that?
No, sir. I don't know the number.
Pick a foot, 6 inches off the ground, keep the foot parallel to the ground. Count out loud. Now on that one, is that another freebie or do you count that one against them if they don't count out loud?
No, sir. We do not count that against them if they don't count out loud.
Well, then what about count by 1001, 1002, 1003?
Again, that's the way that we were trained to administer the test.
So you also wouldn't count that against them if they counted a different way.
No, sir.
Count until I tell you to stop. You don't really give an end date, do you?
No, sir.
You don't tell them how long it's gonna take.
No, sir.
You ever had someone go, well, how long is that? Forever?
No, sir.
I've never had anyone say that. You told Mr. Gallagher, hey, I'm gonna give you a tip. Focus on one spot on the ground.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that in your book?
No, sir. That is not.
So you added that one.
Yes, sir.
Is that based on a scientific test?
No, sir.
So you're just giving advice that may be helpful, maybe not, it's not based on science?
Yes, sir.
What if that tip actually hurts a person, makes it more difficult?
And that would be my mistake, sir.
But to be fair, I mean, you're adding instructions to a scientific test that are not part of the instructions. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
You're telling them to do it a certain way that the manual does not tell you to tell them to do. You agree?
Yes, sir.
How did that influence this test? Do you know?
I don't know, sir.
Tell him to keep his hands by his side.
Yes, sir.
That's actually the exact opposite of how human balance works. Would you agree with that?
No, sir.
Do you know that the body is in a constant state of sway? And that the mind and the body continuously work to make sure that the body stays straight? Do you know that?
Yes, sir.
And one of the ways that you maintain your balance is the way you distribute your weight, and your arms actually helps you distribute your weight one side or the other, right?
Yes, sir.
So your arms is a natural way for the human body to try to remain straight, right?
Yes, sir.
And you eliminate that, right?
Yes, sir.
You tell them, don't move your arms. And in fact, if they move their arms just 6 inches, a dollar bill, clue they're intoxicated.
It's one clue that could be indicative.
Clue they're intoxicated. Yep.
Moving their arm out 6 inches in and of itself is not a clue that they're,
How much does it have to move before it's include intoxication?
well, it's 6 inches for it to be a clue.
That's what I just said, right?
I thought you were saying that the one clue in and of itself would say that they were intoxicated.
All I'm asking you is, according to your training, while the person is standing there with one foot in the air, if they move their arm more than 6 inches, you're gonna count that as a clue against them.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Keep both legs straight.
Yes, sir.
That's a clue. I mean, that's an instruction, right?
Yes, sir.
And when you saw Mr. Gallagher doing it, he didn't have his right leg straight at the beginning especially, right?
Yes, sir.
You had bent a little bit. And you told him to correct that, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
You count that against him?
No, sir.
Does your training tell you to talk to them while they're performing the test and tell them they're doing things correctly or incorrectly?
No, sir, but if I'm not mistaken, from having watched the video, I think he began to do it and then I mentioned something to him, I am about to start the timer and then started the timer. If I'm not mistaken, I think what you're referring to was part of me actually beginning the counting sequence.
Well, the jury has the ability to watch the video.
Yes.
My question to you is, if your training does not tell you you should talk to them during their test, do you agree that maybe you should not talk to them while they're performing their test? And I mean, they can watch the video for themselves, right, to determine if that happened. And then the last instruction is don't put the foot down until you tell them,
Yes, sir.
right? And so if they put their foot down at any time prior to the end of the test in your mind, then that's a clue of intoxication.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, isn't it true that also part of your training, that you're trained that obese people or overweight people over 50 pounds overweight, or people over 65, or people with physical or neurological disabilities, are not always the best candidates for all of the field sobriety tests, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and there are some alternative field sobriety tests that you were trained that you may sometimes employ in the right situation.
I don't remember an alternative, sir.
So you've never been trained on how to perform the Romberg test, where a person estimates 30 seconds with their head back?
No, sir, that was not a part of the training that I did.
What about the finger count test, where a person stands like this? I mean, the thing, touch your nose test, where a person closes their eyes and they see things touch their nose?
No, sir, that was not a part of my training.
Never been trained on that.
No, sir.
What about the finger count test, where you tell a person, I want you to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3 times?
That was included in my SFST refresher course.
Okay, so it's a refresher test you've learned about.
Yes, sir.
And the purpose of it is that it could be used for somebody who's paralyzed, right?
If I remember right, whenever we learned that test, it was something that you would actually do with somebody while they were still in the car to determine if they were intoxicated to a degree where you would actually, or if you were believing they were intoxicated to a degree that you could get them out to start the test.
But is it also true it can be used for people who are obese or over 65 or physically unable to walk a line or stand on one leg?
Yes, sir.
That's an alternative use for it, right? Did you consider that in this case, since Mr. Gallagher did mention that he's had a prior brain injury?
Yes, sir, I did not consider it.
But it's a test you could have used if you'd have thought about it, right?
Yes, sir.
What about the tracing test? You ever been trained on that one, where a person traces?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's the only alternative test that you've ever been trained on, right?
The finger test?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
But you did not employ that. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the blood draw for a minute. I think there was a point made about tattoos versus blood draw. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
And I think the state pointed out that to you. And I don't remember, do you remember what your response was to the question about that?
He asked me if he had tattoos. I said yes.
So he just asked you if you had tattoos, right?
Yes, sir.
What does that imply to you?
It implies that he hates me or that he doesn't hate needles enough to not get a tattoo.
Doesn't hate me, right? Then, I think on video, what'd you say when that discussion came up?
Oh, I can relate or something of that nature.
You said that's different, right? You don't remember that?
And
Yeah, in the video. Somebody said it's different. You
no,
said
sir, that was not me.
that was not you.
No, sir.
Do you know who that was?
That was one of the jailers at the jail.
So one of the jailers, when the question was posed, or it was pointed out that he's got tattoos, somebody said, well, that's different. Right?
Yes, sir. Somebody else in the room. It was not me that said that, sir.
Do you agree that they're different now?
Getting a blood draw versus a tattoo?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a tattoo?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you where?
This arm from my elbow up to my shoulder. is straight.
Hurts, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Did at any time the tattoo artist stick that needle down into your meat, trying to find a vein or anything?
No, sir.
No. Have you ever given blood?
Yes, sir, I have.
Would you say it's a different feeling?
Yes, sir.
It is. In fact, there was another jailer, I believe, in that video who said, I also don't like needles. They say I'm in the same boat or something like that. Do you remember that?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Not everyone likes needles. Would you agree?
I agree.
And Mr. Gallagher wanted to take a breath test. He said, I'll take a breath test.
Yes, sir.
But then you had to inform him that COVID prevented that.
Yes, sir.
I'll pass it.
No problem.
Briefly, Off further. Council, first question he asked you was, you're neutral. Is that correct? Right? You're not here. This convict everybody that you're here to, that's fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you said you're just here to, believe you're responsible. I'm just here to say what I saw during my investigation,
Yes, sir.
right? You didn't know Mr. Gallagher beforehand, you're just doing your job as an officer, and they said,
Yes, sir. That is true.
what was on the video and what you can testify to is what you observed, nothing more, nothing less, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, and I want to ask you a question specifically about, counsel asked you about how you conducted the walk and turn test and the one leg stand test on Mr. Gallagher. Okay, now, tell the jury whether these tests are designed for you to have studied on them or be certified in actually taking the field sobriety test. Are they a test you're supposed to have studied before and have taken before and then reiterated on the street?
No, sir. The instructions are to be given and then be able to be taken.
They're simple tests, right?
Yes, sir.
But it requires mental and physical faculties.
Yes, sir. That's
Okay. Now these are standardized tests used all over the country. And this is a national organization. Okay, and all the questions he's asking is used throughout all 50 states. We use that, correct?
Yes, sir.
And are they administered because they're simple and for anybody to be able to do it on the side of the road, which is where most of the time they are conducted. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, are any of the tests that you talked about, are they set up to get people to fail?
No, sir. They're not.
Okay. More importantly, let me ask you this. Have you ever conducted field sobriety tests on suspicion of driving while intoxicated and how somebody performed on that? You made the decision that there's not enough clues to indicate the intoxication and you let them go
Yes, sir. That's happened many times.
many times. Okay, so it's not set them up to fail test. It's just for you to observe clues.
Yes, sir.
Now, did you observe the clues of Mr. Gallagher when he performed the test?
Yes, sir. I did.
Okay, and the ones you testified to and the one also asked. Is that right? Okay, but you were fair in your administration, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, you weren't out to running down, railroading right down the line, or get us another DWI guy.
No, sir. That's,
Are you doing a quota?
no, sir.
Okay, now. You asked questions about your driving and whether you were observing the defendant driving somehow.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right? Now, at the time that you made the traffic stop, were you investigating driving while intoxicated case?
No, sir.
Okay. So were you observing the defendant driving to see his intoxicated movements while he was driving at the time of the stop?
No, sir, I was not.
It was just for speeding, correct? When did it become an investigation into driving while intoxicated?
Came an investigation whenever I approached the window and first made contact with Mr. Gallagher.
Okay, and you explained that that wasn't the reason why I was following him, looking at his driving. I was catching up, first of all, he's speeding, he's almost 20 miles over speed.
Objection, leaning good.
That's what he said, gentlemen, just reiterating what he said. And to redirect, I can do that.
Okay, I'm sustaining objection. You can rephrase your
Okay.
question.
What were the reasons why it took you a while before you lit up? Meaning you put your lights on?
Yes, sir. While I was in the car, I was getting the radio to notify dispatch of the vehicle itself, waiting for the return, giving the location for the stop, and then also taking my body camera and making sure that it was mounted on my body camera mount on my person. And then I began the traffic stop by turning the lights on.
Okay, so what somehow pretextually what we call to make it an investigation on DWI. You didn't even know anything about this.
No, sir.
My approach it.
Yes, you may.
Now, I want to show you what's been admitted as Stakes Exhibit number 2. There's a picture from the body camera screenshot that council showed you.
Yes, sir.
And he asked specifically about whether or not you could see if his eyes are bloodshot in
Yes,
this
sir.
particular picture. Okay, is that a clear picture like it came off an iPhone?
No, sir.
Okay, so what you observed and testified to, can you see bloodshot eyes in this particular photo?
No, sir.
Okay, so if he's saying, you're saying that it's on here and this is proof positive somehow, that this is not bloodshot eyes from the screenshot. Is that fair to say? Somehow that that disprove what you said in bloodshot eyes? It's not sufficient, is my question. Is this sufficient to say to disprove you saying you observed
Yes, sir.
bloodshot eyes? Okay, so you got your video and what you remember and you put in the report, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, did you make a decision that this individual, Mr. Gallagher, was intoxicated and you were gonna arrest him no matter what after just the bloodshot eyes?
No, sir.
Did you make that decision just after you smelled the odor of alcohol?
No, sir, I did not.
When did you make the decision?
After observing everything I had observed and speaking with Mr. Gallagher, administering the test. And then after that, after administering the test, and that's when I made it.
So it's not one particular clue. It's, I believe you testified, it's totality of the investigation,
Yes, sir.
okay? And you didn't stop there, right?
No,
You
sir.
still continued your investigation and followed the protocol you were supposed to. In regards to getting a blood sample.
Yes, sir.
But I want to be clear, after all the clues before you got blood sample, did you, through observing the clues that you testified to that are on the videos, did you determine that through your training and experience and doing over 50 of these, okay, that the defendant, in your opinion, had lost the normal use of his mental faculties due to the introduction of alcohol?
Yes, sir.
Now, let's do the same thing, exactly the same for that question. Did the defendant, in your opinion, through your training and experience, totality of the investigation, did you determine that Mr. Gallagher had lost the normal use of his physical faculties due to the introduction of alcohol?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Therefore, you made the arrest.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the neurology. And did the defendant ever tell you what he was taking, even though he talked to you twice? He never gave you the name of the medication.
No, sir.
Is that right? He never gave you the name of a neurologist, did he?
No, sir.
Okay. Did he give you enough information, therefore, that you could rely on to say that this isn't a person that he can't do any of the field sobriety tests because he didn't even give you the name of the medication or the neurologist, right?
Plus,
So,
I asked him.
except for what the defendant said. That's all you have to go on, right? Did he get his truck and grab his medication? I take this every day. Here it is, right here. Oh, and that's my doctor right there, right?
Objection, lady judge.
Objection sustained.
So you went over, counsel asked you about alternative tests. Did the defendant give you enough information to decide you needed an alternative test for Mr. Gallagher?
Can you ask the question, sir?
Did he give you enough information that you could make a decision that I need to use an alternative test rather than the standard walk and turn and the leg stand test?
No, sir, he did not.
Okay, so you didn't give an alternative test.
No, sir.
Okay. I'm no further.
Mr. Galmore?
So you didn't get enough info to determine if you needed an alternative test, but you did get enough info to determine you needed to call somebody to ask what to do.
Yes, sir.
You called somebody and said, what do I do? He's got neurology problems, right?
Yes, sir.
And the answer was just do it regularly, right? Good question.
That didn't come from testimony. What are we talking? Is that a question?
My question is, were you told to do it differently?
That was his question.
Were you told to do the walk and turn or the one leg stand differently because of that?
No, sir.
Okay, were you told to do an alternative test because of that?
No, sir.
Okay, but you did call to find out what to do, right?
Yes, sir.
Based on the information you were given.
Yes, sir.
The state went back into this 30 seconds that you're following the vehicle and made a big point about you were not looking for driving clues, right?
Yes, sir.
And you said I wasn't looking for driving clues, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Trained to look for them though, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you seen the video, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Even though you weren't looking, you had an opportunity to look at the video and determine if there were driving clues.
Sorry, sir. Can you ask a question?
Have you had the opportunity to review the video to know, have your own knowledge of whether there were driving clues?
Yes, sir.
He was intoxicated.
Or thought that he was intoxicated, sir.
And there weren't, were
No, sir.
there?
I don't know. Further question.
Mr. Galmore, may this witness be excused?
He may, subject to recall.
We have most thing, but we have to so.
Okay. Detective Perkins, just a reminder that you are under the rule. And please observe the instructions that the court gave you regarding the rule. You are excused. Stay in contact with the DA's office. If you need to be recalled, the district attorney will give you a call.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
you may step down and have a blessed day.